Hello, this is Mr. Fordham, and you are currently listening to a review for U.S. History Milestone. This is from the first 9 weeks Remember This poster, so you should see that on the screen in front of you. If you can't see it, you may want to download it off of the Google Classroom directly and have it up in front of you as you're going over it, or maybe you've got a packet. But we're going to go through that together. So you should have that in front of you now, and looking at it, we begin with the triple F's, which are: the French were friendly with the Indians for fur. This one is to remind you why the French and the Native Americans were on the same side during the French and Indian War, because of the fur trade that was begun by Samuel de Champlain way back during the time of exploration, when he first founded New France, which is Quebec, Canada, and all up and down the Great Lakes there was a lot of trading going on between the French and the Indians, and trading posts, and they mainly were trading fur. And the French were very respectful of the Native Americans. Unlike the British, the French would actually pay the Native Americans for their land. The British would often just take it. So that's what the triple F's are. The second one you see there is the triple R's. Roger Williams founded Rhode Island for religious reasons. So that's just to remind you that Roger Williams is the founder of Rhode Island. He founded a little town called Providence, which is now the capital of Rhode Island. And he also founded the First Baptist Church in America right there. And he founded that for religious reasons. He had been kicked out of the Massachusetts Bay Colony because he had the novel idea of treating the Native Americans as people. And so that's to remind you of Roger Williams. Good guy. Now, the next one are our three regions and what you need to remember about each one. The South was remembered for its cash crops like tobacco, and then of course later cotton will be king. And the mid-Atlantic colonies were called the breadbasket colonies, and you need to recall that these are places like New York and those middle colonies. They're also known for their diversity. Lots of different people live there, so if you can remember that New York's one of those, you shouldn't have any trouble. Very diverse city even today, founded by the Dutch and eventually taken by the British without firing a shot. Then we have New England. They're known for their religion. The same deal as with Rhode Island. They're known for their religion. Remember the reasons that they were founded. All right, Thomas Paine. He's one of our Enlightenment thinkers. He writes a pamphlet called Common Sense. He writes it in common language that the people can understand, and he tries to convince folks that we need to rebel against England. Okay, very important. We're going to rebel against England, and he convinces a lot of people to get off the fence and get on the side of the patriots. Then we have John Locke. John Locke is one of our Enlightenment thinkers. He writes about natural rights, and that these rights come from God. You are born with them. Those rights are, those rights are life, liberty, and property. And of course, Thomas Jefferson takes that phrase in the Declaration of Independence, and he changes that last one to pursuit of happiness. Montesquieu, we remember that it's got 3 syllables, Montesquieu, and those stand for the 3 branches of government. Okay, Baron von Montesquieu, he writes about the 3 branches of government, or separation of powers. Those 3 branches of government are, of course, executive, legislative, and judicial. Alright, LCSY, Ladies Can't See You. This is our John Cena one. This is how we remember our battles of the American Revolution. Ladies Can't, Lexington and Concord. Those are where everything really begins. The shot heard round the world. The Minutemen fight, and they fight the Redcoats, who were going into Lexington to take their arsenal there of arms, and then they retreat back into Concord and defeat the British there. But that's Lexington and Concord. That's pretty much where everything begins. Our turning point of the battles of the American Revolution is C. That's the S. Saratoga. The Battle of Saratoga, Benedict Arnold pulls out a big victory there. That's our turning point, because Benjamin Franklin had convinced the French that if we could win one big battle, they would come in on our side. And that turns the tide of everything, because they come in and help us. We couldn't have won without them, so Saratoga is that place. And of course, Benedict Arnold eventually switches sides, but ironically, couldn't have won the war without him. Yorktown is the very last one, so that's the U, that's the Y, and the ladies can't see you. Yorktown, that's the last one. We kind of hem Cornwallis in there at Yorktown, and we beat him there. All right, now going into the argument about the Constitution, we've got the Federalists versus Anti-Federalists. The Federalists believed in a strong central government. That's called federalism, and they have a weak view of the Constitution. They wanted the Constitution passed as it was, but their view of the Constitution is weak in that they believe that you can interpret it however you deem fit at that moment. And the ones who support that, who write the Federalist Papers to support it, are John Jay, Alexander Hamilton, and James Madison. James Madison becomes President of the United States and is he's called the father of the Constitution. All right, the Anti-Federalists, they wanted strong state governments. Okay, and they had a strong view of the Constitution. Of course, they wanted something added to it, a Bill of Rights, but their view of it, once it is passed, their view is that it says what it says. Thomas Jefferson was the leader of the Anti-Federalists and eventually founds the Democratic Republican Party. All right, manifest destiny. That means that we're supposed to own from sea to shining sea. That is, God wanted us to all own all of this land, from the Atlantic Ocean all the way across the continent to the Pacific Ocean. And that is what the Manifest Destiny was all about. You'll probably see that picture of it looks like an angel, but it's Lady Liberty. She's going west, and you see the Indians having to move out of the way. You see the trains moving west. You see she's holding a book, a public school book, because public schools are going that direction. Don't forget that picture, because it depicts Manifest Destiny. Now, to remember our causes of the Civil War, we remember tissues. And I like to say tissues plus W, because we need to remember that westward expansion is what the W stands for. So I say tissues plus W. So T, that stands for tariffs, that made the South angry. I, industry versus agriculture, which on your test will probably come up as economic disparity. Very often they have a pie chart that shows the economic disparity between the North and the South. North, of course, having all of the resources and all of the people. The South having the biggest export being cotton going out. So there's a big economic disparity between the North and South that causes a lot of differences. The first S is slavery. Second S is states' rights. U, Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was a book that depicted the evils of slavery that got a lot of people fired up about the war. The E is the election of 1860, which was Lincoln. That was one of the main things that caused South Carolina to secede first. And then S is sectionalism. That is, I think of my section of the country as being more important than my country itself. So a lot of people from the South were more happy to be Southerners or Georgians than they were to be Americans. So it caused them to dislike people from other sections of the country. Then, of course, westward expansion goes along with Manifest Destiny. And as we're going out west, deciding which states are going to be slave and which states are going to be free is a big deal. Then we like to say Plessy said yesy to segregation. In other words, Plessy versus Ferguson, that court case made segregation legal. Okay, it made it legal. And then we say Brown strikes it down. Why? Because Brown versus Board of Education struck that down. So you can remember Plessy says yesy to segregation, but then Brown strikes it down. In the Brown versus Board of Education case, where little Linda Brown finally got to go to the local school that she was able to go to, that she had been prevented before because she was black. All right, battles of the Civil War. How do we remember that? Well, it looks like the abbreviation for Savannah, Georgia, SAVGA. S is Fort Sumter. Those were the first shots right there at Fort Sumter, South Carolina. Antietam, that's the A. It's the bloodiest single day of battle of the Civil War. V, Vicksburg, that's the turning point in the West. Big win for General Grant, who eventually become the main leader for the Union Army. G, Gettysburg, that's the turning point in the East. At that point, the Union is officially winning. It's a big defeat for General Lee for the South. And then A, Appomattox, that's where Lee surrenders. He surrenders at Appomattox Courthouse. All right, so that's SAVGA, the battles of the Civil War. Then looking at the different Reconstruction plans, we've got presidential Reconstruction versus congressional or radical Republican Reconstruction. Presidential Reconstruction was, of course, begun by Abraham Lincoln, but he was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth, Ford's Theater. Then his vice president takes over, Andrew Johnson. And he's still continuing to do the exact same thing that Lincoln wanted to do, but Johnson just happened to be a former slave owner from Tennessee himself, so a lot of his own party, the Republicans, didn't trust him. But he was very lenient, and they thought he was lenient because of where he was from. But he was actually being lenient because he was just perpetuating the plan that Lincoln had. Eventually, Congress takes over Reconstruction. So we call that congressional or radical Republican Reconstruction. It's led by Thaddeus Stevens in the Congress, and it was very harsh, and the point of it was to punish the South. Okay? All right, so that was the first 9 weeks review. Take the little quiz that goes along with this, and hopefully you'll do just fine. Keep on studying, guys. We're going to push through. 100% pass rate. That's what we're wanting. You can do it.